Hi, I'm Josh,
And I'm Hannah.
and this is What is New in WCAG 2.1 Perceivable. We are from the Assistive Technology Center at the University of Massachusetts in the W.E.B. Du Bois Library, and that is who is hosting this presentation. If you have not seen our overview of WCAG 2.1, we highly recommend that you go back and start this webinar series from the beginning, unless you're already familiar with the point and significance of 2.1 and you just want to dive right into the perceivable guideline, in which case you're in the right place. Guideline 1.3, adaptable. Adaptable, you create content that can be presented in different ways. For example, a simpler layout without losing information or structure.
And so the first new success criteria under 1.3 is 1.3.4 orientation. This is a level AA conformance. Content does not restrict its view and operation to a single display orientation such as portrait or landscape, unless a specific display orientation is essential.
Now, an example of 1.3.4 would be an online video site. A video is shown in either portrait or in landscape based on the user's chosen orientation. So here we have an image of an iPhone playing a YouTube video in both the portrait and landscape orientation.
Up next is 1.3.5, identify input purpose. This is level AA. The purpose of each input field collecting information about the user can be programmatically determined when the input field serves a purpose identified in the input purposes for user interface components section, and the content is implemented using technologies with support for identifying the expected meaning for form input data.
An example of 1.3.5 would be a contact form using autofill. So a contact form autofills in the fields for name, street, postcode, city, telephone number, and email address from autofill values stored in the user's browser.
And so here you can see an example of what looks like a form where the user begins typing their name and all of their information is already stored in the background and is auto-filled.
All right, next up is success criteria 1.3.6, identify purpose. This is a level AAA success criteria. Now, again, we would just like to remind people that when it comes to level AAA, it is not required institutionally that people meet level AAA. It is nice if people are able to, always nice, definitely that is the highest level of performance. But really, at this point, what people are concerned with is that you need levels A and AA. However, we are including AAA content just so that it is there and you have access to it. So, success criteria 1.3.6, identify purpose. In content implemented using markup languages, the purpose of user interface components, icons, and regions can be programmatically determined.
And so we have an example of 1.3.6 where the links in the navigation of a website are marked up so that users can add their own icons. And we have an example of what this would look like. And you can see there are different icons that correspond with the different tabs here up at the top. So projects, it looks like there's an icon of a little graph bar. And next to that is insights, where there's a different image or a different icon of a graph. Issues, you can see the icon there. Up at the top is a little exclamation point within a circle. And so each of those have a different corresponding icon.
Okay. And now we are on to guideline 1.4, distinguishable. So this guideline makes it easier for users to see and hear content, including separating foreground from background.
And so the new success criteria here, the first one of those is 1.4.10, reflow. So this is a level AA, and this means that content can be presented without loss of information or functionality and without requiring scrolling in 2 dimensions for vertical scrolling content at a width equivalent to 320 CSS pixels and horizontal scrolling content at a height equivalent to 256 CSS pixels, except for parts of the content which require 2-dimensional layout for usage or meaning.
Okay, and then we have
no example. Oh, there it is. Has weird, interesting animation.
Okay, and then the next success criteria is 1.4.11, non-text contrast. And this is a level AA success criteria. The visual presentation of the following have a contrast ratio of at least 3:1 against 3:1 against agent colors. User interface components, visual information used to indicate states and boundaries of user interface components, except for interactive components or where the appearance of the component is determined by the user agent and not modified by the author. And graphical objects, parts of graphics required to understand the content, except when a particular presentation of graphics is essential to the information being conveyed.
And so here we have an example of 1.4.11. On the left, there is an example of an infographic that fails to meet the non-text contrast success criteria. And you can see that the different social media icons are outlined in white on different pastel backgrounds, which does not meet the standard. And then on the right of the slide, there is an example of an infographic that passes the non-text contrast success criteria. And in this, the social media icons are outlined in black on the pastel backgrounds, and those do meet the contrast standard.
Okay, then we move on to success criteria 1.4.12, text spacing, which is a level AA success criteria. In content implemented using markup languages that support the following text style properties, the following text style properties, no loss of content or functionality occurs by setting all of the following and by changing no other style property. Line height, so that's line spacing, to at least 1.5 times the font size. Spacing following paragraphs to at least 2 times the font size. Letter spacing, tracking to at least 0.12 times the font size, and word spacing to at least 0.16 times the font size, with the exception of human languages and scripts that do not make use of one or more of these text style properties. In written text, can conform using only the properties that exist for that combination of language and scripts.
And so here we see an example of spacing in accordance to 1.4.12. Spacing can be overridden to the success criteria's metrics. And so on the left is what is considered a fail. The different spacing metrics are not met. And then on the right, you see an example of where those are met. And then there's another example. Text fits within the bounds of its containing box without being cut off. And underneath it is an example of where that's kind of failing the standard. You can see in the top, we provide a mobile application service to meet, and then the line your needs is being cut off by the next box. And another example, text fits within the bounds of its containing box without overlapping other boxes. Looks like a heading on a website is overlapping with the text body underneath it, making the text almost unreadable.
Okay, and then the last success criteria for this section is 1.4.13, content on hover or focus, and this is a level AA, where receiving and then removing pointers, hover or keyboard focus triggers additional content to become visible and then hidden. The following are true. Dismissal, a mechanism is available to dismiss the additional content without moving pointer, hover, or keyboard focus unless the additional content communicates an input error or does not obscure or replace other content. Hoverable, if pointer hover can trigger the additional content, then the pointer can be moved over the additional content without the additional content disappearing. And persistent, the additional content remains visible until the hover or focus trigger is removed. The user dismisses it or its information is no longer valid, with the exception of the visual presentation of the additional content is controlled by the user agent and is not modified by the author.
And so we have an example here of dismissible. Tooltip is displayed below the LVTF button on hover so as not to obscure the button itself. It does, however, obscure content below the button, the next red button called Comment Zoom Content. To meet the dismissible requirement, a user can press the escape key to clear the tooltip without moving the mouse, as demonstrated in the second image.
And that is it for this.
We actually have one more example.
Okay.
Sorry. And then there is hoverable. And here a button's tooltip is displayed directly below it on mouse hover, which can easily be obscured by a large pointer. The tooltip itself is able to be hovered so the mouse pointer can be moved down to its bottom edge in order to view the tooltip text. And now that is the end.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So that is it for this section of the webinar. So review again if you need to, and when you are ready, please proceed to the next section. Thank you for watching. Our contact info is up on the screen. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with us at atc@umass.edu. Thank you for watching.